What's up, friends? Welcome to SPDM TV. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I watch a lot of TV. We talk about various TV topics, reviews, and general appreciation of TV, past and new. You could follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Serialized at MLHilty2452 to see what all I'm watching. This week, we will be talking about Friends. And today, I'm joined by fellow podcaster and friend Trinity Dobbs. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for coming on and talking to me about Friends. That was the show that we settled on that we were going to
hmm
talk about. I'm very excited to continue the conversation because I'm a big fan. It seems like you're a big fan as well. So looking
I wouldn't
forward.
be here if I wasn't. So,
Awesome. So, but before we get into Friends, tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me a little bit about your podcast.
okay. I'm Trinity. The podcast that I do is called the Real Life Podcast, which stands for Live in Forgiveness Every Day. Me and my co-host Chris, we listen to real people tell real stories and watch and hear the amazing things that have happened in other people's lives. It's really the gist of the podcast. I'm a huge Friends fan. For those of you who haven't figured that out yet, just live life. I work in film and entertainment as a side job, as well as I'm a receptionist by day. So I watch a lot of TV and I
Mhm.
know a lot of interesting facts about different TV shows, which is why this podcast interests me. So
Awesome. Well, glad to have you on, and I will be sure to link your podcast in the episode notes and send people over to your podcast to listen. So, well, let's start with this when it comes to Friends.
okay.
When did you first start watching Friends, and what was it about the show that kind of hooked you in?
So it's gonna be really funny. People when they meet me, they assume that I started really, really young because the show came out in 1994, which would have made me about 1 years old. So I did not start watching then.
Oh
Um,
no. Oh
but
no.
right, I started watching in 2018. So I
Mm,
had a roommate who was obsessed with the show and really liked it, and so she got me to watch it because it was still on Netflix at the time. So we binged it together, and I was like, "This is fascinating. Why have I not seen this beforehand?"
mhm.
So I think the thing about the show that was fascinating was I'm a huge fan of sitcoms. I've always been a huge fan. So I grew up with like Full House and Home Improvement and the classic sitcom shows. And with it being set in the 90s, I think it's just there's something about simpler times. I think the
Yes,
sitcoms and
it's
simpler
so
times,
true.
and I think the friends dynamic that they have on the show is like an adoptive family. They're there for each other regardless, and that's something I just really clung to. I think so, but of course the shenanigans are always a good laugh here and there.
The shenanigans indeed are always so much fun. So,
Oh,
well, that's this is going to be an interesting conversation then because so I I did not start watching Friends in 1994 either. So, I got into Friends a little late. I was definitely on the Friends bandwagon pretty much because I'd rather watch a show like Friends versus a show like Seinfeld, and I'm kind of racking my brain a little bit as to why. And I think the reason is because I like a serialized story. I need something that kind of progresses
oh
forward.
yeah.
I get the appeal with something like Seinfeld, where it's funny, it's
Mhm.
a sitcom through and through, but it doesn't have a connected story. And that's kind of what drew me to
Mm,
Friends
okay.
initially. I didn't start watching Friends until like the final season. And the problem with watching the show has a linear story pretty much. Season 10 at the
Right.
time was you have a lot to catch up on. And there's a lot of
Uh-huh.
things that are like, I don't understand what
Yeah.
is happening with some of these characters. So this was back in the day when DVDs were the only way to really consume TV.
Right.
So I would I would get the DVDs of them, put in one disc, and each disc had like 6 episodes apiece, and then just go from there. And I also did watch it out of order, which probably wasn't the best move because again, you have a lot of context there that
Yeah.
doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to you.
Mhm.
So I didn't season one was among one of the last seasons that I watched. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I get where some of these jokes and context come from now. So
Yeah,
so I did it a little backwards, but
that's
hey, I got there in the end, and then eventually with subsequent rewatches, I watched it in
yeah,
order, and now it's one of my favorite shows. So you talked about it's a sitcom through and through. You
right.
talked about the hijinks and the funny things that the friends get into,
Hmm.
but what was it about it that continued to like you continue to stick with it? Because it's in the 90s, like you said, it is
Right.
a simpler times, but what's something that has kind of elevated it for you that has made it like one of your favorite shows?
I think for me, it's because it was relatable. Because, they're in their 20s and 30s trying to find love in New York City. Well, I am a young adult trying to find love. Granted, I'm not in New York City, I am in Georgia, but it's the same concept. You have at that age group, I always call it the transitional phase of life. So the people who are single, they're
Mhm.
trying to find love, and they end up looking and they end up choosing they're kind of they're not ready to see their parents as friends yet. They still see them as parents, so they don't really like their parents at the moment. So they see their friends as their adoptive family. And that's
Mhm.
kind of a phase, especially in 2018, that I was kind of in that same phase. And it just made me feel, I don't know, like somebody else understood what
Mhm.
I was going through. And all the hijinks and stuff are made for laughs, and I love to laugh, so that obviously helped. But I think that would be my biggest reason why it was just relatable to me.
And that's a great answer, the relatability, because sure, we couldn't relate to like some of the things verbatim. So like for example, I live in Chicago and
Okay.
like I didn't really live in the city, but we're all experiencing some of the aspects that these characters are going through, whether
Right.
it's trying to find love, whether it's hopping around from job to job, whether it's money issues.
Mm-hmm.
Your 20s are a very volatile time in your
Mm-hmm.
life, and to have that be relatable, plus everybody has a core group of friends that they
Mm-hmm.
have, and they could find at least somewhat relatable friends that they have in their lives as well. So
Right.
it's like, oh, I know someone that's
Yeah.
like Monica, or I know someone that's like Joey. But
Yeah.
so I totally agree with you on that. It's relatable, and you felt like they were your friends too. And
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
was always so much fun. So we'll get kind of two topics out of the way before we kind of get into some fun stuff. So the first is this show is very 90s, like you said, and
Mm-hmm.
there's some things that haven't aged particularly well, and that's true with any TV sitcom
Right.
of its time, right?
Right.
So for you, how has the show aged since you first saw it and kind of seeing what's been some of the discourse behind it today?
Yeah. There's honestly, for instance, one of those shows where they were a little bit ahead of their time, a little bit. So I think it's aged fairly well. There's a couple of jokes here and there that I could think, if I thought really hard about it, I could probably think of and be like, oh, that didn't age very well.
Hmm.
But overall, generally the show is aged fairly well, I think.
Hmm.
And because they were very cautious with what they said, the way the writers wrote the show. They were very cautious with what they talked about, what they didn't, and they were very open-minded for a lot of the things. So I think in that regard, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why no one's ever tried to reboot or redo or reshoot or whatever this show, is because it's aged so well, considering other shows. There's a lot of other shows that didn't age well, or some that have like, oh well, it's aged well, but we're gonna reboot it or whatever. Like Full House did Fuller House, or some,
Hmm.
Fresh Prince of Bel Air or whatever. But they've never done that with Friends, and I think that's because it's aged so well that nobody can do it. It's too classic.
Well, it's also this is a show so many other modern shows have tried to copy, and they can't figure out the formula with how this one worked and theirs didn't.
Mhm.
And there's probably a variety of reasons. Right
Oh,
place, right time, right actors.
yeah, I was gonna say right cast. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that is definitely at play. So, and then speaking of cast members, I we'd be remiss not to mention Matthew Perry, who is no longer with us. And
Yeah.
before we get into the show, any thoughts that you want to share about Matthew Perry as a performer, and if any words that you want to say about his passing?
So it's kind of hard for me because I actually have only seen Friends a couple of times since his passing, for obvious reasons. But I bought his book 3 weeks to the day before he died. He died 3 weeks after I finished. I bought his book and read it. And so I'm kind of like, I read through the book and you could just see the pain and the anguish, and you could tell. Sorry, excuse me, I've been sick recently.
All
But
good.
water is dying. But he's one of those people where, as a performer, he's my favorite character on the show, my favorite cast member, just because of his creativity and his sense of humor was fantastic, top notch. And you get that when you read the book. He was very humble. He honestly thought of himself. He didn't think he was that good. He didn't realize how good he was. That's the way to word it.
Yeah.
So he didn't realize how good he was, and he was so humble about it. And the pain and whatever it was that he went through is obviously horrible, but all of it made him who he is. And I think that, as much as he's to this day someone I definitely wish I could have had the chance to work with or meet in some capacity, because I think that he's very, very talented. The fact that sorry, you're gonna have to edit this a lot.
Oh, it's all good. No, it's all good.
He
It's that time of year.
Well, that's why I had to reschedule on you too. This is the best I've sounded in a month. So,
And hasn't it been like unseasonably cold in the South this year?
we got snow for the first time in 10 years. They shut down Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't get snow ever, I get it.
We're not equipped to deal with it. You know what? You can have your snow back. We don't want it. So,
I mean, I'm one of those weird people who I love the snow, I don't love the cold, and I don't love the wind. And when you combine the two, you get a wind chill, and that just makes everything miserable.
I lived in North Dakota for 7 years, so I
God.
understand what you're talking about.
Oh God, that's
I do. I get it. So we moved from North Dakota to Tennessee when I was 7. So I remember how cold and windy and snowy it was. And then I got to Tennessee and I'm like, what happened? Like, it's vastly different. Anyway, but that's what I think on Matthew Perry. That's my answer.
Yeah. So I'm actually in the same boat as you. Matthew Perry and subsequently Chandler Bing is my favorite character. I base a lot of my mannerisms on him. I base a little bit of my sense of humor on him. There was something that was, to me, so relatable about Chandler as a character, because he was a guy that, wasn't the most popular character, nor was he ever the one that there was a true focus on. And I felt like, within my group of friends, that's how I also felt too. So, and then seeing how his story progressed and how much he grew as a character, because that's kind of one of the fun things about watching Friends, is just watching how they grow over the 10 years.
Yeah, you don't even realize how much they grow until you watch the first episode and then you watch the last episode and then you're like, whoa, what happened?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so when there have been a few times when I get a CNN alert or some type of news alert that says somebody passed away, that I'm like, it stops me in my tracks. Like, it happened when I got the notification that Heath Ledger passed away.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I thought it was a joke, because he's playing the Joker. And I was a big fan of the show Glee. And when I got the news that Corey Monteith passed away, that gutted me a lot, because I knew about his struggles with addiction, and it still doesn't change the fact that it really hurt to see him go. And with this one, it's the combination of, I knew that he was struggling with addiction, with his past struggles, and he also just passed away so young as well.
Yeah,
and that, so I've not been able to watch Friends that often since he passed away, because it just makes me sad.
Yeah.
But But
Yeah, I agree with you on that. There's a very few that stopped me in my tracks, and he was one. Betty White was one, as as it should be. There was another one, but I'd have to sit down and think about who it was. But I literally cried when I saw, because I was like, I just finished reading his book, and I just read all of this pain and anguish, and I was just like, what happened? But on the plus side, I was surprised to find out he was a pickleball fan. So, because I also play pickleball, so it was like,
nice.
oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Ve-
cool.
I would never have picked him as a pickleball
Right.
player, but
Uh,
it's a lot of fun though, so you'd
yeah.
be hard pressed not to be a fan of pickleball, I guess at this point, right?
At this point, it's getting popular.
So all right. So let's move on to the show proper itself.
Okay.
And we both talked about Chandler Bing as one of our favorite characters. Do you have any? So let's talk about the core cast first, the six main characters.
Okay.
Are there any other characters that kind of stand out to you as ones that you like the most? It's
Okay.
hard. It's
It is
hard, but
very hard. So Chandler was my favorite, but I think it was because he was the underdog, kind of in my head. And I'm that type of person. I always root for the underdog. That's just who I am. I always want them to win somehow. And
Mhm.
in Friends, Chandler did win. In my opinion, Chandler wins. Everybody loved Ross and Rachel, but I related most to Monica because Monica and I have similar personalities. And
Mhm.
I kind of that's why I could relate to her. But my favorite, Chandler's my favorite, but Phoebe and Joey tie because they were both so, I don't know, Phoebe was just so, I don't know, carefree, and she didn't care what anybody else thought, and I admired that about her. And
Mhm.
then Joey was just, he was a charmer, yes, we know that, but he was just he had the biggest heart
Mhm.
of any of that cast. And I can't pick between those two.
Mhm.
So because they're both so different, and their friendship alone, just the two of them, was great. So
It's funny how these characters, the way that they kind of ended, like certain characters kind of ended up together,
right.
and the natural inclination was, okay, if Rachel and Ross were to get together and
Mm-hmm.
Chandler and Monica were to get together, I know a lot of people were like, well, why didn't Phoebe and Joey ever get together? And I said, because their friendship is just so strong.
It
And
is.
I think that's beautiful within itself.
It is.
And oh god.
I was just say I actually have a story on that. I
Uh,
know some background on that story. So Matt LeBlanc and Lisa Kudrow actually pitched that idea to the studio or whoever, and said they could go back and record some of the bigger scenes and just show them coming out of like closets or something like that. Just showcase that they've been just casually friends with benefits for years.
mhm.
But I think they didn't want all three of them to end up together. They didn't want all three couples to end up together. Was what the network, they wanted something different. And I don't know why, but that's what they were told. I If I remember the story correctly, that's what they were told. So
Well, what do you think? Do you think that you would have been okay with that at the end of the day?
see, that's the thing. I really liked Mike. So
That's
it's a hard one.
that's
But oh man, you're sending me down a topic, down
mhm.
a whole rabbit trail. Like I love Chandler and Monica. I thought that was a great pairing. But I also really liked Rachel and Joey. And I know that's a very bold thing to say. I know that. I'm fully aware of it. I loved Rachel and Joey. But before anybody bites my head off, I will tell you why. Joey loved Rachel for who she was. He loved her. He didn't care that she was spoiled. He didn't care that she was pregnant with Ross's kid. He didn't care any of that. He loved her for who she was. And that's why I like, and the same with Rachel. Rachel loved Joey for who he was. She knew exactly who he was. I mean,
Mhm.
they've been roommates for years. That's why I liked them. And I know a lot of people didn't like that, but to me, it was a better relationship than Ross and Rachel, because Ross and Rachel was the will they won't they consistently, which is what everybody wanted. And I understand the love thing. I understand it. But and I know that's why they ended up together. But I wish Joey and Rachel would have at least had a shot. They didn't even get a chance.
Most definitely did not get a chance.
They
And
didn't get a chance.
although I think how their story ended as a
Mm-hmm.
couple, I feels like it was very much cut short. And
Mm-hmm.
I think they were probably taking the temperature of the room and they probably got a fair amount of backlash for it. And
Yeah.
also, I'm I'm never going to begrudge anybody about their friends' opinions. So please feel free to
Okay.
speak freely. You are not going to be judged at all for any friends' opinions or anything like
Yeah.
that, because I'm sure I'm going to have one that you're like, "Oh, that's a choice." Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think with Rachel and Joey, I think perfectly encapsulates 9 years of development for those characters, because if you look
Mhm.
back to how they both started at the beginning of the series, Joey was an aspiring actor
Right.
and somebody who's just working day jobs while like going from, excuse me,
Yeah.
audition to audition. And Rachel was, as you said, the spoiled brat who just didn't really have a whole lot going on for her
Right.
after she left Barry at the, or yeah,
Yeah.
Barry
Very.
Barry at the altar. So for them to end up together, it felt, there was something about it that felt right, even if it
Mhm.
was a little weird and awkward. But at the end of the day, when two friends who have been friends for a long time and then they end up start dating, isn't there a transition period with them with any group of
Mhm.
friends, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There would be. There would be
So
a. Yeah.
so I agree that they were not given a fair shake, and I'm not sure how it would have felt if all six of them would have ended up together in some capacity. Because,
Mhm.
like you said, and I'm so glad you said it, I love Mike. I think Mike is perfect for
Uh-huh.
Phoebe. And I was one of those people when Mike proposed to her in Barbados and David was in the picture. I was like, this is a tough call, man.
Right.
Because,
That's what I was gonna say. It was a
mhm,
tough call. I loved because I loved David
mhm,
too. David is the one who made Phoebe believe in love.
yeah.
Is who David was. But Mike, I just loved Paul Rudd and Mike so much. And I
Mhm,
don't even know why. I just he just accepted Phoebe for who she was.
mhm.
And he understood she was completely weird,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's what he loved about her.
Well, because
So,
he's kind of weird and quirky too, and
yeah,
they
absolutely is.
they balance each other out. And
Yeah.
I instantly was like, this is her person. The episode where I think it's when like they get set up and
Oh,
he's like, oh, I can play the piano. It's like, oh, prove it. It's like,
prove it.
I don't have a piano. And it's like, oh, a real piano player would know how to play it. And he just goes for it.
Yeah.
It's like, yep,
Yeah.
you,
I agree with you. I agree
yeah.
with you. That's exactly I was like, there's something here. I wasn't
Mhm,
I wasn't sold on it 100%, but that was like, there's something here. I
mhm,
see it. So I knew he was going to be there for a while. So I liked him. But I did like David too, though. I have to give David credit. He was one of my favorite supporting characters. I have to say,
for sure.
because he was just sweet and he was very, oh, the clarity on this diamond is quite poor actually, and it's one of my favorite lines. It's like 1/16th of a carat or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, Hank Azaria just knew how to play the role so well. And
Yeah.
he would just pop up at the most random times. And it always kind of broke your heart a little bit because you knew that he was only there for like a little while.
Yeah.
But then when he ends up kind of like sticking around for like part of the final of the ninth season, like, oh, this is interesting and it's going to
Yeah.
present a new dynamic. And I am kind of glad that they resolved it rather quickly, because I think if they would have kept it like lingering through that final season, I think
Hmm.
that kind of just would have been a little frustrating, because
Right.
we you already mentioned that we've already got the will they won't they from Ross and Rachel pretty much
Yeah.
the since their first initial breakup in season 3. And
Right.
we don't need another one of those. And
No.
so
No.
so good call out that Phoebe and Joey are our favorites. Um
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get a little bit of grief for this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it,
Yeah.
because so I do find myself relating a little bit to Ross as a character as well, because
Okay.
my group of friends, at the time that the show was on, me and my sister shared a lot of the same group of friends. So that was something that I greatly related to with Ross. But that is where it stops, because to me, Ross is a character that I feel like at the like towards the beginning episode or beginning of the season, they were trying to slot Ross as like the main character of the
Yeah.
show. And I'm so happy that they eventually were like, no, this is an ensemble piece. This
Yeah.
isn't, it's not like we have to tell Ross's story and then everybody else is just revolving around that. So I appreciated the fact that they tried to make like a central character for that, even though
Mhm.
I think if they would have stuck with that, I don't think the show would have lasted as long as it
Mm-mm.
did. And
Mm-mm.
I don't think it would have been as beloved as it is now.
No.
But Ross is the character that I think towards the end of the run, I was like, I could do without some Ross centric episodes. Like I hate to admit it because he's the character that some of his decisions, whether it's by story or whether it's by his performance, I just was like, I think I'm good.
Yeah, Ross is not my favorite character in the show, but I think David Schwimmer did a fantastic job
Oh
portraying him.
yeah.
To give him that, he did a fantastic job. But the character of Ross to me was just extremely whiny.
Mm.
And I don't know if he was written that way or if that's just the way he was played, but he was just always whiny. As a person, I just can't handle whiny. Like it's just not something I can handle. Obviously, Rachel could, but I just couldn't deal with it. So
Mhm.
that was why I didn't care for Ross. But I could understand. But Ross was also like the older brother, the protector of the group kind of thing. And I could relate to that because I am the oldest in my family. So I
Mhm.
can understand being which is why I related to Monica because Monica was like the mom and Ross was kind of like the dad. And that's where I kind of felt like I understood him. I understood them too, the two of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, and Ross, like the whininess of Ross got so much worse.
Mm.
Halfway through the run of the show, it got
Yeah.
so much worse, and then it just didn't let up. And
No.
you're right, whether it's by choice or whether it's because it was by design, I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of left a weird taste in my mouth. So
Yeah.
yeah. So we've talked about our core cast. Let's talk
Mhm.
about supporting characters. Do you have any standout supporting characters that it's hard because there's a lot of
Mhm.
supporting characters.
Well, I wrote down David and Mike because I really did like both of them. But I also had to write down Janice because I love Janice.
Mhm.
Nobody else liked Janice. I love Janice. I thought she was great. She always showed up. She was kind of like David. She showed up at the most inopportune times, and you knew she wasn't going to be there long. And she only showed up, once or twice a season. But you always knew when she was there. You knew that there was a reason she was there, and it was always just to complicate matters.
Mhm.
All she was there for was to complicate matters, especially with Chandler.
Oh
But
yeah,
she
absolutely.
complicated everything with Chandler. I did like the one where Ross went home with her. That episode was great because it just threw a twist in there that nobody was expecting. And
Mhm.
she had a line in that episode that says 2 out of 3 or something like that. I thought it was a great line. I thought whoever wrote that deserves an Oscar because that was a great line just to throw in there that just made that show for at least made that scene for me
Yeah.
because the fact that I still remember it and I haven't seen it in like 2 years tells you
Mhm.
something, right? But
Right, right. And Janice unfortunately gets a raw deal in this
oh,
show because it's so interesting because whenever I see the person who plays Janice in anything else, I was like, you don't sound anything like your character in
no, she
Friends.
doesn't.
Because I have two kids and
Okay.
we recently saw the 1998, like the late 90s version of The Parent Trap.
Okay,
And she is a camp counselor in that.
that's right. She's in that movie.
So,
I forgot about that.
and when I saw that, I was like, it's Janice. And my kids are like, no, that's Marva. Like, that's
Yeah.
not Janice. It's like, you don't get it. You don't get it. But you will one
Ah,
day. No worries. But it's so different and it's such a funny take on the whole concept of like the over the top New Yorker
oh yeah.
and and the fact that she stuck around and she made it all the way to the final season. Like,
Yeah.
granted, there were cameos, there were different things like that. And that's all it became. Like
Yeah.
each season, there's at least one episode where Janice showed up. And
Oh, yeah.
that's fine. I didn't mind when Janice and Chandler were dating either.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that I thought they were going to end up together, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I the first time I saw the show, I debated back and forth of whether they would end up together or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was not expecting Chandler to end up with who he did. Let's put it that way. I was not expecting that.
Nope. Nope. Not
But
at all.
that will tell you something about the actress Maggie Wheeler is that she was able to take a small character and just made it her own, and it got her where she's at. Kudos to her for that, because I remember seeing her in How I Met Your Mother. She was in an episode of How I Met Your Mother.
She was a realtor. She was
Yeah.
Marshall and Lily's realtor at
Yep.
the Doisa Tripla or whatever
Yes.
that is. Yeah.
Yes. So, which is why I was like, I remember her being in that, and I was like, wait, that's Janice. Wait, that doesn't sound like Janice. But she created that whole accent, everything herself. So, and now she's getting popular on TikTok or something like that. Her daughter is like, guess who? Or something like that. And Janice comes walking out.
It's fantastic. It's so crazy. That's so crazy.
I know.
So good call on Janice with that. Let's show Janice a little bit of love.
We got to show her a little bit of love. Like, I had to think long and hard about it, and I struggled with supporting characters because I was like, Gunther was so sweet, and then there was David and Mike, and which I both love David and Mike. We've already gone into that, and I was like, but there were so many girls that were just in and out. They were like one stop, but Janice was consistent for all 10 seasons. So I was like, well, we're gonna pick Janice for that. Yeah. She was one of the only other person who was in multiple seasons would have been Estelle that I could think of off the top of my head. And I did like Estelle. But I think Janice was still, if I had to pick an annoying character, it's going to be Janice.
Well,
because she was still lovable. Even though she was annoying, she was still lovable.
I remember the episode in season 3 when they broke up and Chandler was trying to ask her, because she's hyperventilating into a brown bag. And she's just like nodding when he's asking yes or no questions. He's like, I'm going to need you to give me like a straight answer, yes or no. And the first half of season 3, she wasn't that bad. Like that's why to me, I was like, this could be it. And I wouldn't have besmirched them for that. I would have been like, that would have been fine. So you mentioned Gunther. And Gunther's definitely up there for me. Another one that he passed away recently. Yeah, that's very sad. But similar fashion is Janice taking a small character and making it his own. And
that's true.
It's so interesting because he made Gunther the person who just was in love with Rachel. And I thought that was cute, but then they kind of veered away from that a little bit. And I was like, Gunther's still a great character. He just has like a handful of lines each episode, doesn't really have a whole lot to do. It's not like they ran into him outside of the coffee bar at all.
He went to a couple of their parties, but other than that, he wasn't really in any of the scenes outside of a coffee shop.
Yeah. One of my favorite Gunther moments was he's like, what's my last name? Like Gunther Central Perk. And then that came back later on. It was like, I'm here for Gunther Central Perk. Like, it's great. Just fantastic.
I think I liked it when he bought Rachel's cat. When Rachel went and bought that $1,000 cat. And he's like, so what is this? Some kind of snake or something?
Oh, that's...
that was my favorite. I liked that. But I also did like the one where Gunther had a cold and Phoebe was jealous that he had a cold, so she kissed him and he felt guilty because he felt like he cheated on Rachel.
Oh yeah.
That whole thing was, I was like, that's wonderful. I was like, the fact that he feels like he's so loyal that he feels so guilty about it was good job. We approve.
So at first, when I was thinking about supporting characters, I was just looking at, just side characters, ones that came up. And then I kind of had an epiphany. Like, wait a second, technically the parents and siblings of all of these people would count as supporting players. So
I guess so, yeah.
so that to me is where because there's a fine line between some of the supporting characters and also like the guest stars, because the
Right.
some guest stars had like a longer arc, more
Yeah.
than one episode, and
Yeah.
that's fine. So like one to me that kind of stands out as supporting kind of borderline guest star was Giovanni Ribisi, and that's
Hmm.
Phoebe's
Frank Jr. Jr.
Frank Jr.
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 Yeah.
It's weird because he shows up in an early season and is like, I'm not sure he's going to be anything at this point
Yeah.
with Phoebe, because he's so strange. But then he's one that like continually shows up, and he just says he has some of the best line delivery and some of the funniest moments for a supporting character.
He does. He has. Oh, I loved it when he got when she's pregnant. She's having the triplets, and then he comes in and goes, "Oh, you made the doctor cry!" Like it was a great line to me, because I figured out who the doctor. I figured out who the doctor was T.J. Thine, who is known from Bones.
Oh, that's right.
He played Jack Hodgins in Bones. That's who the doctor that Phoebe's like, "Run away, little boy, run away." That's who that is. Like I trust you. I figured all this out like 3 weeks ago. So
nice.
yeah, because I just watched Bones recently for the first time. So I was, oh wait, I see all the people now. I get it.
Television's a small world because
it really is.
There's so many characters that you're like, oh, I know this person from this, and it's always so fun to do that. So
that's why I like watching. Well, I've been binging NCIS recently, and so I'm sitting here watching. Oh, wait, that's Misha Collins. He's from Supernatural. Wait, that's TJ Thine. He's from. Wait a minute. So you're just seeing all the different people, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then of course you're meeting all these people before they really their shows took off, because this is like 2003 when NCIS started. So and it's still going.
I know, right? It's not only is that show going, it's spun off like 4 different versions.
No, it's like 6 now. So well, because NCIS is a spinoff of JAG. So originally the show was JAG, and then it's NCIS, and then it's NCIS LA, New Orleans, Hawaii, Sydney, and now they have Origins. And then they're doing the Ziva and Tony spinoff too.
There you go. So
yeah,
one other supporting character, and this is where the parents come in, because I tried to think long and hard about which parent I like the best, and each of them has their own fun moments. But to me, why I picked Ross and Monica's mom, Judy, as my favorite, it's that Thanksgiving episode where it's the first one where Chandler and Monica moved in together, and it's the one where Ross gets high. And so it's at the end of the episode where all of these people are just confessing everything, and Joey ends with like, "I want to go," and Judy just like, that's a lot of information to get
in 30 seconds.
And just that whole thing is like, Rachel, no, it did not taste good. It's like, Joey, if you want to go, just go.
Yeah.
Just that whole sequence.
This is great.
Perfectly encapsulates for me why I love Judy as a supporting character.
Yeah. I think now you're making it tough on me.
Yeah.
So I love Phoebe's brother. He was one of my favorite. I loved his lines were great. His character story, the storyline was great. I loved everything about Phoebe's brother. But if I had to pick a parent, I would actually pick Jack Geller.
Either one of them.
Yeah. I think I would pick Jack, but I think it's because Jack is the most loving parent out of all of the parents, except for Joey's parents. Joey's parents are different. Joey's parents don't count. And Joey's parents are only in like 1 or 2 episodes. So Jack Geller is the most consistently one, because all the other parents are just
interesting to say.
Yeah, that's a good word. I was trying to think of the right word. But Jack has been there consistently, and he's actually supportive. Whether you see it or not, he actually is. And it was very and Judy, though, that sequence is a good sequence. That was but I think Jack, I loved it when Emma was born, and he's at the hospital. That whole episode just encapsulated Jack for me. And I absolutely loved just him in that because it's, he catches Monica and Chandler in the closet, the hospital, and he's like, go, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, or whatever. It's like, here, yeah, if you're gonna try, here's a pamphlet, try it again. like that's not how my dad would take that conversation. No, so
it's
right.
But you're right. He is super supportive, and he loves his kids. Yeah, that's a great pick for Jack. So all right, let's go on to guest stars. So guest stars is where it gets a little tricky, because guest star is a bit of a fluid term, because one of my favorite guest stars shouldn't really count as a guest star, because he was in like a lot of a couple seasons. Because one of my favorite guest stars is Tom Selleck.
I knew exactly you were going to say that. You were going to say Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck should be classified as reoccurring. Like,
I agree, which is kind of how I feel about Giovanni Ribisi's character as well.
Yeah.
But I put Tom Selleck in the guest category because I wanted to. It's my podcast, so I can do what I want.
You can do what you want.
But Tom Selleck has some of my favorite moments of season 2. It broke my heart when Monica and him broke up, but it also made sense. They were going to break up, because they realized that they weren't going to have a future. And to me, watching that when I did, that's when, for me, I realized, oh, I have to think about that stuff when it comes to a relationship, don't I?
Yeah.
Where, you could be compatible, you can be in love. If I don't have a future with this person, then what are we even doing? And coming to that realization was tough, because I thought Monica and Richard, they were a great couple. They complemented each other really well. They did. And Tom Selleck is just fantastic. And when he showed up in the episode where Chandler's about to propose, I lost my mind. Because if there was anyone
could have ruined
that, it was him.
Yeah, absolutely. You were right. You were 100% right. See, the way you feel about Tom Selleck is kind of how I feel about Jon Favreau's character.
So, okay.
I hit a nerve.
No. You didn't hit a nerve, because I think those two broke up for the stupidest reason. And for Pete to work so unbelievably hard to get Monica's attention, and for him to squander it away over the ultimate fighting championship. Really?
Yeah.
Really? But it's frustrating, because I loved Jon Favreau as a character, and Pete was amazing. And I thought, but go ahead. You brought him up, so I'll let you.
No, you finish your thought, because I agree completely.
I just think that they got a raw deal. So
I do too, because I loved the fact that Pete was wealthy, was something that was hidden from the audience for a while, which is why I liked that he liked Monica for who Monica was, and not, just, oh, she's a waitress, whatever. No, he liked her for her. He got to know her by eating at a restaurant every day. I loved that about him. And she figured out that she loved him for who he was, and not because of his money. And I did appreciate that storyline was there. But I did think that they broke up for a stupid reason. But I also understood it was similar to the Tom Selleck thing. It's because of sometimes it just doesn't work out. There's no future. And, she says it in the show is, I'm not going to watch you beat yourself up. I can't. I care about you too much to watch you do this to yourself, which I appreciated, which means that she loved him enough to let him go. And it was the best decision that she made, because if she hadn't done that, she wouldn't have gotten Chandler. So, I get it. I don't have to like it, but I get it. And that's why I think I feel the same way about Jon Favreau as you do about Tom Selleck.
Yeah. Who are some other guest stars that you...
Oh, man. I loved Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh, that's the Manny. Yeah.
The Manny. We love the Manny. I loved him. I did like Charlie, too. I really liked Charlie. Charlie Wheeler. Yeah. I loved her and Ross. I wanted her. I was so gung-ho for her and Ross. I think Ross got the raw end of the deal on that one.
Yes, I would have to agree with that. I thought that they worked really well together, because she's a scientist as well, so
Yeah.
could have understood him. I think the episode where she gets back with Greg Kinnear, I
Yeah.
thought I thought that was really funny, but it also kind of sucked what happened to Ross in that
Hmm.
respect. So
Yeah.
that's a good call out for that one.
Yeah. I like them. And I did like Mona. I did like Mona for Ross as well. Either one of those women would have been perfect for him. And I would have loved to have seen their relationship first. Although if I'm gonna go with an actual guest star, Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, like,
Bruce Willis,
did a fantastic job.
he was fantastic because so Bruce Willis kind of brought a little bit of comedy to what to me was a bit of a problematic relationship between Elizabeth and Ross a
Right,
little bit.
right, right.
So to bring in Bruce Willis, who this is back when Bruce Willis like actually like kind of cared a little bit in terms
Uh-huh.
of, and granted, I understand right now, Bruce Willis, he's got a lot of health challenges right now, but
Right,
in the 90s, he was still going really strong.
right.
And I thought his dynamic with Rachel was fantastic.
Oh,
And I laughed so hard when, he's like, I don't cry at anything. And then eventually it
just
just,
pours out the tears. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
And you know why he was on the show, right?
the whole 9 yards, because Matthew Perry,
Yeah, he lost the bet to Matthew Perry.
yeah,
Which I was
that's
like, I now have to watch that movie. I'm gonna have to find it and watch that movie now. Just
that's
so I,
a that's shockingly funny movie.
hmm,
The sequel isn't that great, but the first one is pretty
okay,
good.
I'll have to. But
So
yeah, I did like the love machine in that episode for Friends. So that was a good one.
Brad Pitt, though, that
Yes.
that
Oh,
Thanksgiving episode is so good, and
uh-huh.
Brad Pitt just goes for it, and
Uh-huh.
he does such a good job.
And he was married to her at the time. He was
Mhm.
married to Jennifer Aniston. So the fact that he could just do that is amusing to me.
Yes, yes.
Because
So
you have to think about it, because he was married to Jennifer Aniston. He's throwing shade at her character, and he's also watching David Schwimmer be in love with his wife. That
exactly.
had to be rough.
It had to be rough, but also just Brad Pitt had some of the funniest lines in that. And
That episode.
also the reaction from the crowd when
Mm-hmm.
he shows up is among one of the loudest, like, oh my God, it's Brad
Yeah,
Pitt.
yeah,
So
yeah. I know Tom Selleck and Brad Pitt had the largest reactions
yeah.
on the show. I think my favorite is when Phoebe is sitting on the couch watching the game with Ross, and she meets Brad Pitt's character for the first time. She goes,
Wow.
"Wow, thank you, God."
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. She had some great lines because of his character, and I did appreciate that. But he had some wonderful lines as well in that
Well,
episode.
so in addition to that part, one of my favorite lines from Phoebe is like, "Oh, come on, Will, take off your
Take off
shirt
your
and tell
shirt.
us." Yeah. Just
Ah,
little things like that. Yeah.
yeah.
So a couple other that I'll shout out. I did love Susan Sarandon's cameo in season
Yes.
7. That one was solid. I'll give a shout out to Ralph Lauren, who no lines, just stand in
Right.
an elevator, just
He had one line in the whole show.
yeah. So, and then the only other one that I will shout out, Gary Oldman in at the end of season 7 with Joey and his big like World War II movie.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, just Gary Oldman just playing like a caricature of himself, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give shout outs to all those
Yeah.
characters
I'll give
as
out
well.
one more shout out to Christina Applegate.
Christina Applegate was a little bit on the underrated side as a
Uh-huh.
character. I did like her a lot, and I liked her better than Jill, which is Reese
Witherspoon.
Witherspoon. So
Yeah.
that's,
Well, yeah. I think Christina Applegate's character was more spoiled.
oh
And
yes, way more.
I think that's what made her great, was she didn't realize how spoiled she was, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So whereas Jill kind of realized how spoiled she was. Yeah, I bought a boat, but it was for a friend. And then Christina Applegate's like, who doesn't want a baby stylist? Like, that makes the most sense in the world.
Yeah, that's good call outs for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to storyline. So
Ooh, all right.
favorite. So and storyline is kind of different because I have on here favorite episode and favorite season, and some storylines kind of run the gamut throughout like the
Mhm,
entire show. Some of it lasts like a couple seasons or a couple episodes. That's it.
mhm.
So, do you have any storylines in particular that you enjoy the
I
most?
enjoyed the most. Well, that's a tough one. I did like all the practical jokes that Ross and Rachel were pulling on each other with Ben. That I enjoyed, but that was only like I think one or two episodes. It didn't go very far. I did like the brother, Phoebe's brother, Frank Jr. His entire storyline for the entire show, I enjoyed
Mhm.
because he was just so different. It wasn't a standard storyline. It was very different. I mean, I think one of the questions I even wrote in to ask you was your favorite couple. And I'll ask that question now and then I'm going to tell you because my favorite couple was Monica and Chandler. And I love their entire storyline, like start to finish. Like I loved everything about it because
Mhm.
I could spend 2 hours talking about that couple particularly, but I won't. But that's one of my favorite storylines was that. But I did like the Rachel and Joey storyline as well. And even though that they didn't, end up as a couple or whatever, I did appreciate it because it just showcased, some people are meant to be friends. And
Mhm.
it showed genuine breakup, it showed genuine heartache, it showed unrequited love. And I did like that in that regard. And I think I did like Phoebe's musical career. That was always a fun one.
Phoebe's musical career became less and less of a thing
Yeah.
as the show went on, and I don't like that because her
She should have wrote an album. Like she should have easily.
right, or she should have continued playing at the coffee shop. Like
Yeah.
that was a little frustrating when they stopped doing that as much. But
Yeah.
I'm sure Lisa Kudrow was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they were like,
Oh,
okay, that's fine. So to answer your question, the correct answer, unfortunately, is always Monica and Chandler because fortunately for us, as we're big fans of that storyline, there was something that Chandler said. I believe it had to do because Joey and Rachel asked him, as like, did you ever struggle and like you and Monica started like hooking up?
yeah.
And he said, no, it felt like we should have been doing this the whole time. And at the end of season 4,
Mhm.
when she comes out from under the covers and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I wasn't sure how I felt about that because
Mhm.
they had been friends for so long. But like the subsequent story of them trying to keep it under wraps,
Yeah.
that was my favorite part of this, is
Yeah.
because not only was it funny them trying to keep everything under wraps, but what we got front row seats to them falling in love as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I loved the most about that portion of their story
Yeah.
is they kept everything under wraps from everybody. I'm just going to put my cards on the table. The
Go
one
ahead.
where everybody finds out is
It's,
probably my favorite episode.
that is it's my second favorite. It's one of my favorites.
So I just really I love them as characters, and
Mhm.
they complement each other so well because she doesn't put up with his crap and he doesn't put up with hers either.
Right.
And when he said that to Joey and Rachel, that's when I knew it was like, oh, this is the beginning of the end for them.
Yeah.
That sucks. But
Yeah.
that's when I was like, yeah, Monica and Chandler are the couple for this show because
Yeah.
his their proposal to one another is one of the best episodes
Oh,
of the whole show.
oh,
And
so sweet.
so yes, Monica and Chandler are my favorite couple, and their whole story when they're getting together and falling in love,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite storylines as well.
Well, and it was for me. It was genuine. It was genuine, but it was also showcasing to the audience we fight too, but we're just gonna fight for each other too.
Hmm.
Because that's how standard relationships work. Is
Hmm.
you don't just run off when the first sign of trouble. You duke it out and figure it out together.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's what Monica and Chandler did. Whereas, the first sign of trouble, other people just run off. And that's
Well,
what.
that's what happened. Like as well is that Chandler, like the first time they get into a fight, Chandler's like, "Well, I guess this is done," and she's like,
No,
"No, no, no,
no.
no, we're good."
Yeah.
And he's like, "That's what happens when you're in a relationship." And the look he gives, like, "Oh my God, this is why none of my relationships last."
Yeah.
And that was just so sweet for
Hmm.
him to come to that realization, and for her again just not putting up with this crap and being like,
Yeah.
"Yep, we're gonna fight, but we're gonna stick together."
We're gonna stick together. Yep. And
So
yeah, I loved that about Monica and Chandler. So they're my favorite. That whole storyline is my favorite because I think they tried to. I know originally when the show was originally being created, they wanted Monica and Joey to end up together. Was the
mm,
original couple. Ross and Rachel, Monica and Joey were the original four cast, and then Phoebe and Chandler were going to be supporting. Was the original way it was written, and they realized when they got all six together that no, this is something different, and it's the dynamic of the thing. And then they realized the chemistry between David Schwimmer and Rachel, or Jennifer Aniston, and then they realized the chemistry between Chandler and Monica. So that they could easily make that work because I mean, if you just watch the show, you can see that, Matt. This is my opinion. I could easily be wrong, but this is my opinion. The way Matthew Perry looks at Courtney Cox, it doesn't matter if it's in Friends or not, he's
mhm,
in love with her. And he'd been in love with her for years. And you can
yeah,
see that clearly on and off camera, like, or at least from the show to whatever other things.
mhm.
So I was waiting for it. But it was one of those when I found out when I watched season 5, episode 1, which happens to be my favorite episode, when it comes out from under the covers for the first time, which I know they did in the end of season 4, but
The
see
aftermath, yeah,
the
the
aftermath
aftermath.
of it is for me is my favorite episode because you're like, this is a couple I didn't realize I needed because they hid their chemistry really well.
Mm,
And then when they bring it to the surface like that, and apparently that was the longest applause that the show had ever had was that particular scene.
mm,
And so they had to wait it out for a while. And they actually had to cut out a lot of it. So that way they could get the show under 22 minutes. And I'm like, it's because everybody felt the same way we did. We were not expecting it. We didn't know we wanted it. And now we're like, that makes sense. Let's
mhm,
do that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why I love the storyline. It's because it
mhm,
makes sense. But the writers did a great job in hiding it. They didn't it was one of those things we didn't know we needed until we saw it,
mm,
you know. And
yeah.
that's why.
So one other storyline that I will give a shout out to is,
Okay.
so as a parent, I looked at things a little bit differently upon rewatch of Friends, and the whole storyline behind Rachel's pregnancy was one that at first I was like, I don't buy this. I sure, okay, that's fine. But as a parent now, I'm like, oh, yeah, all of that feels pretty spot on at first. When you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrified. Am I going to do the right thing? Like, one of my favorite episodes of the series is the one where the game show Bamboozled, and
Yes.
like
Let's
just
play Bamboozled.
so unexpected because Chandler is like, this show is, or this game is dumb, and Ross being super competitive, he's the one that's going to want to play. But to incorporate that into, questions about baby, like what to
Mm-hmm.
do with babies, and if I could pick like a specific storyline from that, the whole storyline behind who's the father was interesting, but at the end of the day, it was Ross. Of course it was Ross, because it's
Yeah.
because it's Ross. Like
Yeah.
it's got to be. So yes, I will give a shout out to the whole storyline with Rachel's pregnancy. I did
Yeah.
I did like that.
Yeah. That's a good one. That
Hmm.
one I hadn't thought of it, but that one I did enjoy the after she gave birth. The whole baby got back scene is my
Oh, oh yeah,
classic scene for
that's a
me.
cool one.
I did enjoy that one, and I think I actually did enjoy I'll give a shout out to the Oklahoma storyline. I'll give a shout out to that because it showed the strain on the relationship for Monica and Chandler. You could see it, and they
Hmm.
were struggling, and you could see what distance does to people. So but I should also showed the strength of their relationship too, how strong
Got
it
it.
actually was that it could survive that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. I was not expecting to like that, but I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought because it's a change of pace that the show like never explored
Yeah.
about what to do when these people are apart. Like they kind of broached that subject a little bit when Ross goes to like China for an archaeological dig.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, that's a great pick. And for it to happen like that late and it still be that good, that's a great one.
Yeah. Well, because it's one of those where that was what season like 8 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Something. So it was one of those where they knew the show was going to keep going, but they needed something to go there. It's kind of how I kind of took it a little bit because
Mhm.
they knew it was coming close to an end, but they weren't sure exactly when it would
Yeah.
end. I could see them have if they would have had to end it then they would have ended it with them moving and left it there.
Mhm.
And I could have easily seen that just being a way to end the show. But the way they ended it was really good. So the
Yeah.
whole storyline and the whole show, it was they did a great job with it.
All right. We've mentioned a couple of our favorite episodes. Do you have any other ones that you wanted to shout
Oh,
out?
well, I've loved season 5, episode 1, which is the aftermath where everyone finds out with Monica and Chandler. The one where everyone finds out is always a good one. And I really did enjoy Monica and Chandler's wedding
Yep.
because A, it's an actual wedding, and all the shenanigans that happen throughout the wedding is
Mhm.
just, to me, quite amusing. But I did enjoy Barbados. I
Mhm.
enjoyed Barbados.
A lot happened in that
A lot of
Barbados
happened in
episode.
Barbados. It was very eventful, but I think the blackout one was always good too. I loved
Mhm.
that from season all the way back to season 1.
Yeah.
That blackout episode was always a good one. I did enjoy that one because it was so simple. That one, and then there was one more that I liked. It was the one where everyone when no one's ready, where they're trying to get ready for that, and everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. It's like season what 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So where everything goes wrong, Ross is just trying to get everybody out the door, and he can't get anyone to do anything that he wants, and
Mhm.
he's getting stressed. And it's a great Ross episode because obviously he has no patience, and everybody is in their own little world.
Mm.
So it's quite funny because
Yeah.
it's anything that can possibly go wrong is going wrong somehow,
Mm.
and his stress level is just rising.
So all fantastic picks. Love all
Yeah,
those episodes. The only one like it's hard to pick Thanksgiving episodes for this because the Thanksgiving
yeah,
episodes
they're
are
all
really strong.
good.
They're all really strong. So I'll kind of just give a blanket statement for all of those episodes. I feel like as a Friends fan, you got to be contractually obligated to at least mention the prom video one, which
Yeah, that's true.
so the prom video episode used to be my favorite episode. It's kind of wavered a little bit. And I think the reason why is because Ross and Rachel just as a couple, it's like, okay, that's the episode where they get together. It
Right.
has one of my favorite recurring or favorite jokes about she's her or she's his lobster. You know,
Well, yeah,
that's that's cute. But overall, I've
yeah, I
kind
can
of
see.
yeah, we mentioned the one where Chandler and Monica get engaged. that one's
Okay,
that one's a great
that
one.
was a great one.
And then I think the last one that I will shout out, tough call with this, I will shout out the one Halloween episode that they did, the one with the Halloween party in season 8.
With Ursula.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I always found it interesting that Halloween wasn't a bigger deal to these friends, but it also made sense that Thanksgiving should be
mhm,
what you showcase with this group.
yeah.
So I really like that episode a lot. Yeah, I
That is a good episode. That's the episode with Sean Penn
Mhm.
and Emily Osment is in that
Yeah.
episode too. And great.
Mhm.
I know I had to think about it. I was like, wait, yep, that's her. She's in that episode, I believe.
Mhm.
It's that was a good episode because yeah, pregnant Rachel is very interesting. It's always
Yeah.
a that's always a good storyline as well. Pregnant Rachel is just amusing.
Well, and the differences between all the different Halloween costumes, I think Ross going as Spud Nick, and
Yeah,
everyone thinks that he's Duty is great.
that's a good one. You got Supergirl showed up and Catwoman and the Velveteen Rabbit, or
Well, and then
it's
Joey
not even a
dressed.
Velveteen Rabbit.
It's definitely not, but it's just a rabbit. But
Pink Bunny.
Joey coming in as Chandler was
That's
that was a nice touch.
that was a great touch. The fact that Joey thought to go as Chandler was,
Even better.
yeah, it was great.
All right, let's go recurring jokes. Any recurring jokes that you like?
Oh man, recurring jokes. I love. It's not a recurring joke, but it's one of my favorite scenes. Was the moo point?
Oh,
That's my favorite scene of the whole show. It's a moo point. It's like a cow's opinion. It
it's
doesn't matter.
moo. It's moo.
It's moo. I love that.
So
I think I like that when they make fun of Chandler. The
mhm.
could you be any more annoying? Or yeah, those Chandler jokes are always good.
So the moo point one, I've incorporated that into just day-to-day dialogue. I was like, it's a moo point. And people who have seen Friends, it's like, oh, it's like a cow's opinion. It's moo. But then you run into somebody who hasn't seen Friends, like, don't you mean moot point? I'm like, no, I don't.
I mean moo.
I mean moo. It's like a
Oh,
cow's
that
opinion. It doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, so that's such a good one to pick.
I swear, if I want that on a T-shirt. I swear
Mhm.
I'm going to buy a T-shirt and put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah,
It's on my list of things to do in my life. I have some very small goals in my life, but that's one of them. So
very nice. One that I will shout out, and this is going to be one that it's going to be hard for an audio only podcast, but the way that
yeah, all the signs that they do, yeah,
they bang their fists at each other as a way to say the middle finger.
yeah,
It just shows up at the most random times, and I used to do that all the time to people. I
yeah.
still to this day do that to people, and some people get it. Some people are like,
That's funny.
so that's one that I like a lot as well.
I think one of the other ones I do like is when Ross goes, "I'm fine." No, really, I'm fine. He just does it throughout the entire show, and I'm fine. Fine. I don't know
Well,
why my voice is getting all loud and squeaky. Believe me, I'm fine.
because I'm fine. Yeah, that is a great one. Because that was like last season when that episode came up. And it's a funny contrast between that and like at the very beginning of the show when he would be like, hi. That was one of his things, is he would be
Yeah,
like, hi. But when he's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah,
yeah.
that was always a lot of fun. I think a couple other things that I will point out. We mentioned it a little bit before, but Phoebe's songs and just Phoebe performing.
Yeah.
Smelly Cat is great. Just a lot of other random songs. Yeah, I like that.
I think they should release a whole album of just Phoebe songs.
Mm.
Because I know they have the Friends soundtrack. They do have a CD that's the Friends TV show soundtrack, but none of them have Phoebe songs on them. They're not Phoebe songs. They're songs that you hear throughout the show, not Phoebe songs. I think they should make one specifically of Phoebe songs. That would be awesome.
It only happens in one episode, and there's an episode where Ross is teaching. He's a teacher at this point, and
Okay.
he comes up with an accent.
The British accent, yeah.
So it might, I don't remember, but he comes up with an accent, and the way that he gradually phases it out, and then Monica comes in with her Irish accent, and then Rachel, like everybody does accents that episode.
That was a good episode.
I love that. And then one other one that I'll point out. So my kids are really into stuffed animals, even though they shouldn't be because they're allergic to everything. And one of my kids, one of her favorite stuffed animals is a stuffed penguin. And Joey having a stuffed penguin named Hugsy, which comes up
Love Huxley.
at the most random times. Like the fact that the fact that Joey's like, oh, I bet you don't know about Hugsy,
Hugsy, my bedtime penguin pal.
my bedtime penguin pal. And then later on that episode, he's just cuddling that thing. And then it just shows up in the background every now and again. And then there's one episode where Emma wants Hugsy, and
Yep.
Joey's like, no, I'm not having this.
Yep.
So
I
talk about another supporting character, because Hugsy has been
Hugsy wins. Oh no, I got one. Hang on, hold on. I got one for you.
okay. Let's see it. I didn't realize that they even made those. For all those out there on an audio only podcast, we got Trinity has brought a stuffed animal turkey. It's the sunglasses and the fez from the one with all the Thanksgiving episodes. That's
I got this as a birthday gift a week ago.
oh, very nice.
It's a plushie. So it's my favorite now.
Good
so
call.
I thought this is a nice supporting character as well.
Yes, very much so.
Turkey is always a supporting character.
All right. Do you have a favorite season? And it's knowing full well, it's tough because this was back in the day when it was 24 episodes per season.
Yeah.
And some of those episodes are rough. Not all of these episodes are winners.
Yeah.
And when you have over 200 episodes, I get it. There's not going to be. So with that caveat that, hey, not every season is going to be filled with winners, because there's always going to be dud storylines. There's always going to be dud episodes. So with that being in mind, what is your favorite season?
So because my favorite storyline is Monica and Chandler, I'm going to go with season 5, because that's really the beginning of their relationship, and you begin to see them fall in love in that. And that's when that storyline actually happens. But I will give a shout out to season 3, because I think season 3 has some of the best episodes. You know, like the one where everyone's getting ready, or the one with there's so many in season 3 where I think Janice and Chandler are dating at that point. So there's more of Janice in season 3, and I think Tom Selleck is in several episodes as well. And I think that season 3 just has it's one of those where people that they began to establish the relationship of the friends, and were trying to figure out if it was going to continue or not. But they had such good one-off episodes in season 3. I think season 3 is the one with the baby on the bus too. I think
that might have been season 2.
That may have been, maybe.
But Pete is also in season 3.
Oh, that's true.
So understandable with that one.
Yeah, I think season 3 had more of those one-off episodes that didn't require a lot of storylines. Like you could watch a one-off, but season 5 would have to be one of my favorites, just because I love Monica and Chandler together so much. But I will give a shout out to season 9. I think it is season 9. Season 9, just the way it was flowing, even the way it was still going so strong in season 9. I think because it's one of those where part of me is I'm probably gonna get some flack for this, and that's fine. Part of me thinks that they could have easily ended Friends at season 9. I
don't think that's an outrageous thing to say, because
they could have.
For a show that was on as long as it was, there are some moments where it's like, how much further can we take this?
Right. And I know a lot of the characters or the actors were getting frustrated, and like, how much farther can we take it? So they could have easily ended in season. I understand why they didn't. I get why they didn't, because there's some episodes in season 10 that if they would have ended at season 9, they would have had to give some closure somehow. And I could see if they would have known that season 9 would have been the end, then it could have easily been done very well. I think, and they could have just cut out a couple of episodes. I think the way the show ended was great. I thought it ended very well, especially for a show that's been on that long. But you could tell that it wouldn't have gone past season 10, because it wasn't going to end. It wouldn't have ended well if it did. So they were smart to end it on a high. So, and end it the way they did.
Right.
So, but I think season 9 had it great. It was still going fairly strong. It was starting to wind down, and you could tell. I think overall that there was a lot of closure that happened in there, and everybody was getting comfortable. And I don't know. It gave me all the warm, fuzzy feelings.
Yeah. So I agree with season 5. Season 5 is definitely up there. I love season 8. Season 8 had a lot of solid episodes. That's where that's Rachel's pregnancy was the central story of the season.
Right.
And then you add, kind of the makings of Joey and Rachel being a thing. The episode where they go on that date, I thought that episode was adorable.
I did
And
too. I thought it was a great episode.
and it just goes to show, just like, wow, these two have like legit chemistry.
They
So
really did.
let it happen.
Yeah.
I will give a shout out to season 4 as well, because
Okay.
in addition to, as a Friends fan, being contractually obligated to mention the prom video, I feel like we at least have to mention a little bit the one with the game show and the one with the embryos, because a lot happens in that episode.
Yeah.
And like, because it also has another one of my favorite recurring jokes, which is nobody knows what Chandler does for a living. And
That's true.
And for that question to do them in,
Yeah.
was just hilarious to me. So
That's true. Where they lose the apartment. Yeah, that was a great episode. That was a great episode. I think that's actually one of my favorite episodes for season 4. For season 4, because you don't expect them to lose their apartment. You don't, and it's the fact when the boys come riding in on the dog. That's one of my favorite. You're ruining moving day for us. It's one of my favorite lines. It's great, and then like the whole thing is good. I did enjoy it. And of course Phoebe being the main storyline for that pregnancy, and that's a good season. That is a good season. I think season 3, the reason I like season 3 is because season 3 is right before all the heavy stuff started hitting. So all the heavy stuff starts hitting in season 4 with her pregnancy, the moving, people start actually getting serious. So it's like almost like, you're 29 years old, but you're not quite 30. So you're having your last year of fun. And I think season 3 is kind of that for the show.
So one of the things that I like about season 4, I did like them going to London. I thought that was interesting. But the other thing too is that also has the episode with Chandler and Monica first getting together. But I audibly gasped and Ross was getting married to Emily, and he says, "I, Ross, take thee Rachel." I was like, oh no.
Oh, no. Well, I read the article on that where David Schwimmer kept screwing it up. Like he just could not get the line right. He tried and he couldn't, and they just had to write it into the show because he could not get the line right. Which I understand, because I mean Ross loves Rachel. He's loved her since he was 15 or younger.
Yeah.
So it makes sense why he would say her name. And the actress who played Emily was pregnant, so she couldn't travel much anymore, which is why she was written out of the show. Which I understand all of that, but I thought I literally, when he said her name, I was like, this is not going to end well.
No,
it's not going to end well.
It is definitely not.
And that is the episode with Hugh Laurie in it.
Yes, he is the unruly, or not unruly, but he is the guy sitting next to
Rachel.
On the plane. Yeah.
A good old Dr. House, right?
Right. All right. So we've reached our final kind of questions, and that is the legacy of the show. So we'll kind of talk about it in whatever angle you want. So legacy of the show for you specifically, and kind of the legacy of the show for pop culture in general.
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't even know where to begin. Why don't you start and then I'll jump in?
Sure. Absolutely.
Let's do that, because I'll need a second.
So in regards to the legacy of the show specifically for me.
Okay.
We talked about it at the very beginning about how the show is relatable. And I think for me, this show perfectly encapsulates a lot of what it means to grow up. And that is where, for me, this show is always going to hold a special place in my heart, because it is the perfect time capsule of what it's like to grow up in your early 20s and then go all the way until like your 30s and you're quote unquote grown up per se. And just seeing like the struggles, and because it wasn't always easy for this group of friends. They fought a lot. It's a sitcom, so hijinks will ensue.
Oh, of course.
I guess. So to me, this will always be like an allegory for me about growing up, and also just like what it means to just have a group of people that you could just call family. Because there's the family you have, and then there's the family you choose. And for me, at the time that I was watching this, the group of people that I was closest to, and I'm still close to this day,
Mhm,
was was my friends from my church youth group. They
mhm,
were the ones that I relate like we were a lot of us were Friends fans.
mhm,
So we watched the show together. And also all of us kind of slotted into one of these six roles in our friend
mhm,
group. And that's where the relatability comes in. And
mhm.
that's where, for me, it's always going to have a special place in my heart.
Yeah. I think for me, I will agree with you for most of what you just said, actually. You made the comment that it made you, or it showed you how to grow up, kind of. Or I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but you
It's
get my
it's
point.
yeah, it's representative of
It's
what.
representative. That's right.
Yeah.
That was where you're right. That is why I guess because 2018 would have been in my early, yeah, mid 20s at that point. So that's, the epitome of what I was going through at that time.
Mhm.
So that is why I like the show as much as I do, because it shows you remember starting, when you're 24, 25, being young and carefree and all that stuff, and then you grow up with the show and you're watching it and you're just like, when did we become adults? But you
Mhm.
you you feel like you're doing it with a set of people who are your friends,
Mhm.
and having a group of friends that you're doing life with is always a good thing. And that's what I think is why I like the legacy of it for me as well. But also the lessons you learn when you're watching television too, like stupid stuff. Don't sing "Baby Got Back" to 1 year old. It doesn't make sense to do that. Leaving a baby on a bus, using a baby to pick up a woman, not necessarily the best idea in the world to do. But
Mhm.
also, then there's the other things is that people that are so vastly different can still care about each other. Those six are vastly different. They're all Ross is a paleontologist. He loves science. They they teased him a lot about it, but he was
Mhm.
allowed to be himself and be that nerd. And Phoebe was completely out there. You never knew what she was going to say next, but they
Mhm.
allowed her to be who she was, and
Yep.
that was the point.
Mhm.
You should be allowed to be who you are and don't be afraid to be who you are. And I think that's what friends and family do. And I think that's why I really appreciate the show is I was never afraid to be myself. So
Yeah.
that was my legacy with the show, I guess.
Yeah. In regards to pop culture, so we talked about this at the beginning, how this show can't replicate a show like this. And the reason why we know you can't replicate a show like this is because it's been tried countless times on countless networks, countless streaming channels, and none of it works. The closest thing that I would probably say comes to this a little bit, probably The Big Bang Theory,
Okay.
which,
Yeah.
like ish, not like completely, but
Right.
a group of friends where, it's just following what it means to all of them
Yeah.
to just like be friends. And but it's different because that has more of like a science and like nerd culture
Yeah.
angle to it.
Yeah.
This just felt like six people. It kind of feels a little voyeuristic in a way. Like you're watching just six friends as they get into shenanigans in New York
Yeah.
City. So, and it sucks because part of the pop culture ness, the pop culture legacy for me is that it is a 90s show through and through. And I had a Central Perk shirt on, and like somebody who's like younger was like, "Where's that coffee shop?" I'm like, "Go away." Like,
Yeah.
never felt more old in my entire life.
Right.
But there is a reason why this show is still beloved. It's a reason why Warner Brothers Discover paid a truckload of money to have it be on HBO Max when streamers were trying to scoop up content. It's the reason why to this day it's still one of Netflix's top shows, and it broke everyone's heart when it left Netflix.
Yeah. I think
Um,
I cried when it left Netflix.
So this will always have for me a legacy of being something that in reality probably shouldn't have worked because it's a
Yes.
pretty basic premise, but it worked because it just hit all the sweet spots of so many
Mm-hmm.
people that were watching it. And it was just right place, right time,
Yeah.
right cast.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they're very lucky that it gained the following that it did. But hey,
Mhm.
luck
Yeah,
is a very big part of television success,
that's
and this one got lucky.
especially when you've got six actors who are virtually unknown. And the
Mhm.
most famous person on that cast was Courtney Cox. So, I mean, David Schwimmer came from what theater? I mean, Matthew Perry had been doing several movies and stuff by that point, but he was the youngest cast member. He was only 24
Mhm.
at the time the show started. And I think Jennifer Aniston was about the same age.
Mhm.
She was roughly the same age. So they're all virtually unknown. So for six unknown actors to get overnight success and not even I don't even think they fully realized it
Mhm.
until after season one. So
Yep.
I agree with you. In the pulp culture, I mean, there's so many shows that have been based off of characters of the show. There's so many books and merch like just everywhere. And it's 30 years later and this is still thing. The fact
Mhm.
that it's still this popular tells you that it's such a legacy in pop culture. There's
Mhm.
no way. I mean, I have a cup and it says how you doing on it. Like I
With
bought it,
with
yeah.
that frame too and
Yeah, it's got
everything
the
on
frame
it.
and everything on it.
Mhm.
Like, you've got the turkey, you've got people. Me and I have another friend who he and I literally call each other. We literally just quote friends. That's 90% of what we do. Just quote
Mhm.
friends
Mhm.
because we both love the show so much, and we just talk about different episodes. Oh, how was your day? Oh, it was good. Yeah, I was doing this, and it made me think of this episode of Friends where blah 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 blah. Like that's why it's still popular to this day is because people are. It was so relatable back then, and the way it was written is it was written obviously in the 90s and it's set in the 90s and early 2000s. You can watch it, just it goes with the flow, like it changes as the show ages too. So
Mhm.
it's not oh, floppy disks and internet and Mac computers were just getting invented, but they just everything. Oh, I bought a new laptop, like that was mentioned in the show, like I bought a new laptop, so here's this. Or oh, well, I've got, a beeper. Okay, well, we got cell phones, like it's the little things that you
Mhm.
notice that you can see that they're they're going with the current times. They're staying current. And that was why, I mean, and they were very particular with what they showed on camera, and they were very particular with how they people dressed and everything. So, and they stayed as current as they could.
Yep.
And I give them props for that. So that's hard to do.
Very, very hard to do. So, but the show endures. We love the show all the same.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, Trinity, thank you so much for your time and
Mhm.
talking to me about Friends. So let the people know again. Where can the people find you? And is there anything that you want to plug?
Well, I do have my podcast called The Real Life Podcast. I will give you the link and let you put it wherever it needs to be plugged. I am also on most social media websites. I'll send you the links as well for all those at Facebook and Instagram, especially the two I share the most. I do have a TikTok. I'm not on it very much, so
No.
it's kind of one of those where I could post, but I just choose not to. So you can find me on there if you want to, but I'm
Mhm.
not on there that much. But Instagram or Facebook are usually my top two.
Got it.
I think that's everything at the moment. Yeah, because yeah, that's pretty much everything at the moment. But
All right. Cool. Well, thank you very much. We'll be
yes,
sure to send people over to your podcast,
I
and
appreciate.
then would love to have you back if you ever want to talk
Oh,
about
absolutely.
another TV show
Yes,
sometime soon.
yeah, I appreciate you letting me come on and ramble about Friends because it's nice to meet somebody who can understand it like I do.
Exactly. And I always appreciate that. And that's one of the fun things about, starting a podcast like this is that
Yeah,
kind of like what you mentioned before about your podcast, where you get to meet people who have such interesting stories and definitely not like the same level of interesting, but still
right.
something that's so relatable with people in terms
Mhm.
of, just shared interest. And it's always fun just to
Yeah.
talk TV with people.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been watching multiple shows. I grew up fairly sheltered, so I didn't get to watch expand my horizons a lot. So now I'm getting to the point where I'm watching a lot of older shows for the first time. So it's been very interesting to watch. Like I told you earlier, I saw Bones for the first time in December. So like I watched all 12 seasons in December because I'd never seen it before. Interesting. Okay. So now I'm
Yes.
like, and then you have to think back about when it was made and all, and you have to take that in consideration with any TV show.
That's
So
very true with that. So again, thank you again. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to continuing to chat with you soon.
yes, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for this episode of SPDM TV. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew or wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website at spdmcrew.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM Crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Check out our other shows on the network. We've got lots of shows on movies, TV shows, sports, physical media collections, comics, music. We've got lots of different ones on there, so definitely check them out. Until next time, happy watching, friends.